so lovely to be here tonight. What a beautiful life. Give yourself some round of applause. You're so lovely.
For today's podcast, I just want to offer a simple suggestion to everyone out there. I think we all should be a little bit more like Andy Ruiz. And if you don't know who Andy Ruiz is, I will tell you a little bit about him and why I say this. Andy Ruiz is a heavyweight fighter who this past Saturday defeated the champion Anthony Joshua in one of the biggest heavyweight upsets in recent memory. Some might would say the biggest heavyweight upset since Buster Douglas beat Mike Tyson, or at least since Rockman beat Lennox Lewis. But needless to say, one of the biggest upsets in heavyweight history. As a result of that upset, Andy Ruiz now is the holder of 3 of the major world titles in the heavyweight division. Now, the man that Andy Ruiz beat was Anthony Joshua, who was a 6'6" heavyweight champion. Looks like he's carved out of granite. And of course, he was the overwhelming favorite. Andy Ruiz, on the other hand, is a relatively short heavyweight, quite rotund, and he definitely looks like maybe he could be your mechanic, but he does not look like a heavyweight champion. Just doesn't look like a guy that's in the greatest of shape. But everyone who knows boxing knows that Andy Ruiz has a ton of skill, fast hands, quick feet, high boxing IQ. He's the goods. He just doesn't look like it. So during the fight this past Saturday, Andy Ruiz came into the ring. He was a late replacement. The previous fighter had to pull out because he failed a drug test. But this fight was supposed to be a coronation for Anthony Joshua in Madison Square Garden, New York City, the Mecca of boxing. And in the third round, Anthony Joshua hit Andy Ruiz with a huge left hook and dropped him like a ton of bricks for the first time in his career. But from that point forward, Andy Ruiz decided that he did not want to stick to the script. And what he did was he picked himself up off the canvas, immediately turned around and dropped Joshua twice in the same round and seized control of that fight. He would go on to knock down Joshua 2 more times in the 7th round and win that fight by TKO and shock the world, and in the process make history as the first ever Mexican-American or Mexican heavyweight champion. So shout out to him for making history. But the reason why I think we all should strive to be like Andy Ruiz is this. Barely even a year and some change ago, Andy Ruiz was a completely unknown fighter. Plenty of skills, plenty of talent, but relatively unknown. He had no major promotion behind him. He was his own manager. And he got a call from the people who represent Anthony Joshua offering a fight against Anthony Joshua in the UK for $30,000. Basically, they wanted to pay him to come over to the UK and be a punching bag for Anthony Joshua. A hostile environment, probably hostile judges, just a situation where he would be expected to lose. Not treating him like the worthy challenger that he was. And what Andy Ruiz did at the time was he bet on himself and he turned that fight down. Now, shortly after that, Andy Ruiz did get a bigger promoter, and that promoter lined him up a fight on Fox, and he won by spectacular knockout. So a few months ago, when Anthony Joshua, planning his debut in America, had to cancel the fight with Jarrell Miller because Miller failed a drug test, they needed a late replacement. So who stepped in? No one other than Andy Ruiz. Except this time, instead of $30,000, they offered him a reported $5 million to come in and be that late replacement. Now, mind you, they're paying him so well because now his profile is larger, yes, but also because they need him as that last second replacement, but they need him to go in there and lose. Andy Ruiz took that $5 million and made history. We need to all be like Andy Ruiz because he didn't just bet on himself. He didn't just believe. He didn't just sit around and fill his own head with affirmations. He bet on himself, and he turned that belief into action through his work. He kept fighting. He kept winning. And when he got into the fight and he got dropped, He picked himself up off the canvas and he refused to let his opportunity slip him by. All because, again, he turned his self-belief into true action. Because I think now we live in a time where there's a lot of affirmation. There's a lot of people reinforcing how they feel about themselves. I'm great, I'm good. And there's a place for that. But there's nothing like turning that talk into the real deal. There might not come a time in our lives where we get the opportunity to bounce somebody all across the ring like they stole something. But in whatever our field is, we have to have that same level of belief in ourselves, that we know our worth. We know the work that we've put into what we do. We know what we have earned by virtue of our work. We know what we will accomplish once we're given the opportunity. When we know these things, we work like we believe in these things. We make all of that self-belief manifest itself in a real way, not in a nebulous, metaphysical way, in the real world. And that's what Andy Ruiz did. All that self-belief, all of the sacrifice and work, it all coalesced on one magical night in the ring, and he walked away the champ. On this past Saturday, once again, the underdog had his day. Against all odds, Andy Ruiz is the new heavyweight champion of the world, despite how people think he looks, despite how the game perceived him just as short as a year ago. That man is on top of the world through his hard work, through his dedication, through his self-belief. And I think we can all take a page from that book, because in one way or another, I think we've all felt like Andy Ruiz, or most of us have in our life. We felt disrespected, underestimated, discarded, and cast aside. And I believe we have to apply that same level of dedication and belief. And in whatever our respective fields are, if we stay at it, we fight hard enough, we'll make it to the top, and we'll be champs in our own right. Shout out to Andy Ruiz. This one's for the underdogs. So